What's going on, everybody? I am back for a little bit from the throes of the worst back pain you will ever experience last night to just talk about basketball for a little bit if I can manage to make my way through it. As you can see, I got my TENS unit on. That's what these things are right here. I got some electric volts just pulsating all through my spinal region. But anyway, I just came on here for a little bit just to inform my fellow Laker fans about the players that they're getting in the trade, from the Timberwolves and the Jazz. D'Angelo Russell, who you are already familiar with in some respect if you watch this channel for sure. Jared Vanderbilt and Malik Beasley specifically, because I've watched at least 100 games of both those brothers. I watched at least 2 seasons of basketball pretty much from those 3 people that they're getting. So I just thought I'd shed a little insight onto what you can expect from them as basketball players and specifically how they're going to fit in the Lakers like framework and stuff like that. So we can save D'Lo for later. If you want to really get a deep dive in D'Lo, you can watch other videos on my channel. We'll talk about him at another time. But specifically, I want to talk about Jared Vanderbilt and Malik Beasley. Malik Beasley, man, this the electricity is getting me. I guess we could start with Malik Beasley. As everybody knows, he's known as a shooter in the league, and I think a lot of people have expectations of him being like a super like movement shooter guy that's flying off screens and like doing all of these other things and making shots from everywhere on the floor and stuff like that from different platforms and all this other stuff. I'm here to tell you he's not that kind of shooter. His best skill as a player is essentially like the repeatability of his jump shot, and you kind of know what you're going to get from him night to night from just an attempt standpoint, where he's going to be on the floor, where you can get those attempts for him and stuff like that, because he's not really a shooter that does well with variability, like in his kind of places that he shoots the ball, like not specific spots on the floor, but like how he catches it on, what platform he catches it on, and can he turn into certain shots and do things like that. Like he's not going to be a guy that's going to just come with any kind of footwork and just like be able to get a shot up quickly. That's not how he kind of operates. He's more of a guy who can get to his spots, go inside out, meaning he can like go through the paint and get some screens and get some actions that way, and then like you'll find him come into the corner, he's open, and you'll hit him for a spot up 3, stuff like that. He's not going to be shooting on the move too often, but he's going to move to get open to where he can get to his, I don't want to call it a set shot because it has a lot of athleticism. He gets a lot of vert on it, and his form, his release is consistent all the time. That's what makes him a great shooter. But he's not going to be a guy who's going to be coming directionally off screens and then pulling up off of the left leg and turning in the air and shooting the ball into the basket. He's not really that kind of shooter. He's more of a 2-foot, hands at the ready, catch the ball and let it fly kind of guy. And that's what you're going to get from him as it's in terms of shooting. Of course, you're going to get your hot and cold stretches as a shooter. That's just what everybody does. And he has his issues with that as the course of the season goes on. He has long stretches where he can be cold and stuff like that. But when he's on, he's absolutely on. As far as him as a basketball player in other respects, outside of his jump shot, if you've watched him, you've probably seen that he has some level of athleticism and things like that. But that stuff doesn't really apply when we talk about him playing defense specifically. Now, he's not a good defender. I'm just going to say that because he just physically doesn't have the tools to be a capable defender in certain matchups that you want him to guard, because for all his athleticism and things like that, he's still relatively not that fleet of foot laterally, if that makes sense. And his athleticism doesn't really translate to that end as well as you would think it would. And so he struggles in certain matchups and things like that. He's gotten better, like I won't say results wise as a defender as the years have gone on, but in terms of like his effort that he gives on the court and stuff like that, he's generally more engaged than he had been previously. But even when he's engaged, like the results are going to be what they're going to be, just because he doesn't really have the tools to be that great of a defender in the first place. In terms of offensively, outside of his shooting, there are some things that he can do well. The one thing you do not want him to do is dribble the ball more than twice, pretty much in any circumstances, because he doesn't. This applies to the defensive stuff as well. When he gets into multiple dribble situation stuff, he becomes like a flat-footed kind of guy where he's dribbling and he's like falling back on his heels and stuff like that. He's not generally going to be able to create for you in that way. Surprisingly, though, he is like a good passer. in certain situations, like not off the dribble, driving kicks type stuff for the most part. But if you have like set design things for him to come off of curls from the corner to the wing, and he has to make a read on a pocket pass or a skip pass or something like that, something that takes one dribble or zero dribbles, and he can just survey two options, he'll generally make a good decision, and he'll make a pass that's on time, on target, and stuff like that. But you don't want him to have any like super playmaking creation equity or anything like that in any respects. But those are the things that he's generally good at. One read coming off a curl, throw a pass, come off a curl, shoot a floater, or get a layup. Now, his touch inside the paint kind of varies. So he'll have moments where he's absolutely on because he can use his athleticism to kind of get up and over people and like shoot. Sometimes the tire blow out and he don't get there, and then the touch just gets everywhere. So he's more of a boom or bust kind of guy in that sense. In the offensive structure of an offense, the offensive structure. If you're going to run him off screens and things like that, you can do that, but don't expect him to be like a super movement shooter. He can finish some off of screens and things like that, but you need to generally help him get his buckets, or else he's not going to be of much use to you. And that's pretty much the overarching theme of his game. He has to play with people who know how to give him the ball in the spots that he needs to get him in, and just hope that his volume and his success rate are kind of commiserate with one another, because no matter if he's making or missing, he's going to let it fly. So sometimes that could be a 2 for 12 night, and you just got to live with it, and it just is what it is. Moving on to Jared Vanderbilt, I know the reputation on him is like that he's this extremely like rangy defender and switchy and things like that, and he's a generally like good glue guy, and all of that stuff is true. I will say he is switchy, and he has utility as a ball guarder, like point of attack 1 through 5 in certain matchups. Like I don't think you can't just scale him down to any perimeter player and expect him to guard them, because he's still, for all of his athleticism and things like that, he's still kind of an upright guy in some respects. And so he can kind of struggle with guys who change direction quickly and laterally and stuff like that. Like they're not going to absolutely smoke him or anything like that, but the returns are diminishing at a certain point if you just expect him to just go and guard everybody, because he has certain weaknesses that won't allow him to do that. On bigger fours, he can have some trouble because he's not necessarily a sturdy guy, but his general utility as a defender, aside from being generally smart in off-ball situations and being capable in on-ball situations, he's just a professional irritant, and that's what his overall value is as a basketball player on both sides of the ball, because he has like an innate ability to find the ball, find the person with the ball, and kind of disrupt what they're doing, and kind of just make it lead to possessions for your team. His overall net positive thing that he does better than anything, better than the offensive rebounding that he's particularly good at, and some of the transition creation and open floor creation that he has, which he has in some respects, or even his ability to roll into spots and just stay in windows and know how to create space on the floor that way, even though he's not a particularly reliable finisher or catcher of the ball in certain respects. But his overall utility on a basketball team that makes him like extremely valuable is he can generate a lot of extra possessions for you a game. And that's not just like because he gets steals, he gets his hands on the ball and like deflects it and gets a steal, or he gets offensive rebounds. He is generally around, like if there's a 50-50 ball, Jared Vanderbilt is in the vicinity, and he can create extra possessions for you, not by even securing possessions, but by like knocking the ball off of a guy as they're jostling for an offensive rebound, or creating jump ball situations and just winning the tip and stuff like that. He does stuff like that again, like about 6-7 times a game, outside of the just the general rebounding and steals numbers of it all. But the issue with Jared Vanderbilt is twofold. We know on offense he has his struggles as a like just because he can shoot somewhat, but not really. He's not a reliable thing. And like I said, his hands aren't that great, and he's not that great of a finisher. Well, he's not reliable as a finisher, I should say. But the things that really keeps him from being like a guy that you can consistently count on. You can count on him when he's on the court. You can count on him to give effort and things like that. But he almost has a problem where he plays a little too hard. And so what this causes is that he'll wear down over the course of a game or a course of a season. So like last year with the Timberwolves, he was like pretty much the best guy in like all of their metrics, plus minus like net rating type of things like that. Not necessarily the best guy, but he was always up in the best lineups and all these other things. And you saw in the playoffs that kind of switch. And the result of that was that over the course of the season, he just progressively like got a little worse as time went on. And you could see on the court he was just generally tired, and like guys were being able to push him around more easy and things like that. And I say that to say, if you want to maximize Jared Vanderbilt, you probably don't want him playing more than 20 minutes a game at this point until he if he ever develops some offensive utility outside of spot creation and things like that, because he's going to wear down over the course of the season because he just plays too hard. He hits the floor like 12 to 15 times a game. And I'm not exaggerating about that. He falls a lot and he falls hard. And so he's going to just be banged up over the course of a season. And so depending on how much workload he had in Utah, it could be best to just kind of deploy him. I'm not saying don't play him every game, but deploy him in situations where you need energy and you know that he's up to the task of giving it to you. He's kind of like Wenyen in that respect. I think he's better than Wenyen at that specific skill set because the possessions he generates consistently are just so valuable to your team. And so I think that both of these additions are things that the Lakers need for sure. I think any basketball team could really use that, but Jared Vanderbilt specifically brings some things that the Lakers will find very useful, particularly because of like their just general badness at like rebounding and things like that. Now, he's not like a great defensive rebounder or anything like that, but I think he can kind of mitigate some of the things like that people have issues with AD not playing hard and stuff like that. One thing you're not going to have a problem with Jared Vanderbilt is playing particularly hard at any given time, and he will provide extra possessions for your stars in LeBron James and Anthony Davis, and to a lesser extent D'Angelo Russell, to just kind of take control of the game that might be getting away or something like that. He has a knack for just keeping you in games that you might see slipping away. But other than that, like I said, we could talk about D-Lo at another time. I'm about to go somewhere and lay down because my back is absolutely cooked. Hopefully I will be back on here soon, you know what I'm saying? Maybe with some tens talk, we might, you know what I'm saying, call it tens talk. We got the tens unit on. We might talk about 10 things or something. I don't know. I'm just saying stuff. But other than that, well, how long we've been on here? 12 minutes? That's good enough. You know what I'm saying? I see y'all when I see y'all.